Well, today we're having a roundtable here at Masterpiece Barber College directly with Latino men to talk about health, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, the things that we really need to improve in all of our communities, but especially with Latino men. And I know that not every constituent can come to my office or attend a town hall, and so we believe in meeting people where they are. And if you want to have an honest conversation with men, there's no better place to do it than in a barbershop. And so that's why we thought we would do this event around health and mental health here at Masterpiece, to be able to have a panel of experts from the Latino community, people who are healthcare providers, experts from the health district, mental health experts, as well as the state senator, who is a leader in healthcare, join to shape out this conversation, along with the students themselves. I think is very informative, and it's a way to make sure that we get the information to the people who need it the most.
What's the importance of having this conversation at a barbershop as opposed to a typical town hall at a local high school gym or something like that?
Well, look, especially for men, there are some safe spaces for men, and barbershops are among those spaces. And we have a lot of conversations in barbershops. Now, we may have it with our barber and one or two other people while we're waiting to get our hair cut. And so the idea was to kind of open it up, broaden it. I've done these type of barbershop talks on other topics, but today we really want to center the issue of mental health specifically, and healthcare broadly, and how it affects Latino men. Why? Because 34% of Latino men access mental health care, but that's below the national average. We also know that Latino men face issues of asthma, hypertension, diabetes at higher rates than other communities. And so again, bringing them the resources, breaking down barriers and having honest talk about how these issues affect them. I learned a lot from the panel, but also from the students who asked questions.
And how important are those conversations right now with the Trump administration in particular, and of course the future of healthcare, not only in your district, but in the country?
Yeah, well, right now, President Trump and Republicans in Congress are trying to push through their big, beautiful bill. I call it a big, ugly bill that would cut health care for 16 million Americans. Here in Nevada, that's 1 in 3 Nevadans whose health care would be affected if these cuts go through. That affects all of us, but it also affects the Latino community. We're talking about access to health centers, our hospitals that would be affected, the inavailability of seeing a healthcare provider. It's already hard to see a healthcare provider sometimes. So more cuts will only make that worse. And the idea that they're making these cuts on the backs of working people in order to give tax breaks to billionaires is one of the reasons I voted no. And while we're working hard to try to prevent the bill from moving out of the Senate.
In all this, at the same time that you see ICE raids across the country, and many men, we had a couple people today who talked a little bit about how it's not them themselves as their family that may be undocumented, or just the overall general feeling of fear in this country. What can you speak on about that conversation?
Well, I represent the 4th District, which is 50,000 square miles here in Nevada, Southern Nevada. And I have and represent a lot of diverse populations and a lot of immigrant communities. It does impact the Latino community, but it also affects other communities, the Asian community, the Caribbean community, the African community. And what I'm seeing right now with these ICE raids are very concerning, because not only are they raiding businesses and raiding communities, they're showing up in unmarked vehicles, not in uniform, masked, not showing ID or providing a warrant, and they're not doing what the president said, which was he was going to focus on criminals and violent criminals. They're showing up at high school graduations. They are raiding parks and community centers and soccer games. They're coming into the Broadacres swap meet that's affecting our businesses. That is not making our communities safer. It's actually making them less safe. And it's creating a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of concern about whether people's families are going to be torn apart. Now look, I get it. We have a broken immigration system, and we need to work in a bipartisan way to actually fix the root causes to make our communities more safe. But this approach is chaotic, it's cruel, and it's creating more concern in our communities and making it less safe.
Can you talk about the No Kings protests from the weekend? Are these things that protests that you support, seeing all the people that we saw, over 8,000 Las Vegas residents this past weekend?
I absolutely support my constituents' right to peacefully protest. And I've encouraged my constituents to make sure that their voices are heard and to speak up and to speak out, to do it peacefully, to respect our law enforcement and the rules of engagement in our communities so that we're not having vandalism or busting up businesses or windows or things like that. But people have a right, because when you're talking about your family being torn apart, when you're talking about children being separated from their family, when you're talking about dreamers who've been here since the time they were children, and this is the only country that they know, now being concerned about whether or not they are going to have the protection to remain in this country, they need to be able to express that and to do so in a peaceful manner.
How concerned are you with the president's rhetoric on Iran?
Well, let me be absolutely clear. The only authority to declare war comes from Congress. This president has no authority whatsoever to initiate war against Iran or anywhere else unless he comes through Congress. The horrific events that are happening in the Middle East must be addressed, and as a member that has served on the Armed Services Committee and in other capacities, I know the volatility that is occurring, but the president posting on Truth Social or having different positions day by day, again, is not making the United States safer. It's actually potentially drawing us into yet another international conflict. He has no authority to do that. Only Congress can declare war, and that he would have to do that coming through Congress.
And last couple questions for you. There's a no war protest tonight in Las Vegas. I imagine you're looking for those same principles that were followed over the weekend as far as being peaceful, but still voicing your voice in this issue.
Yeah, to my constituents everywhere. Whether I've talked to you personally or not, I respect your right to peacefully protest and to hold your government accountable. That is the cornerstone of our democracy. And there's a way to do it that respects the rule of law and to make sure that vandalism and other things don't occur. But the right to protest is something that we hold dear, and I will protect it on behalf of my constituents.
And last question is, we have a bit of an audience here as well. What can you say about what the rest of 2025 looks like? How do you go about the rest of this year in office?
Well, look, I'm focused on delivering for my constituents. I'm very concerned with the cuts that are being proposed on the backs of working people and the fact that it's all to give tax cuts to billionaires and to big corporations. But I'm also about building economic opportunity. I'm focused on lowering costs. I believe in investing in workforce training programs like the Barber College that we're in today, because we can't just be against Donald Trump and Republicans. We have to stand for something. And I stand for economic opportunity. I stand for giving permanent tax cuts to small businesses, to moms and dads who actually need the relief, not big corporations or billionaires. I stand for protecting people's universal right to health care and housing. I stand for making sure that children can get fed a meal when they go to school, and I stand for protecting Social Security and Medicare so that people can retire after a lifetime of work with a sense of dignity. So as I work to protect my constituents from some of the worst policies that my colleagues on the other side are pushing, I'm also working to advance the policies that I know